Chapter 12. Connecting the Tang. Valoria! My clothes are drenched in Krokhov's blood and my own. Help me! I can't believe I killed someone. I can't believe I stabbed Krokhov. I can't move! I had no other choice. It was either me or him. He made that abundantly clear. I'm having a hard time breathing as I gasp for air. My ribs still hurt terribly. Sharp pains stab my chest with every pant. I don't know how to feel about this. I killed a man. Yet, he's killed children, and apparently my parents as well. He's also the same man who forced me and all those other kids to work in a mine for our entire lives. Until eventually, I threw myself in front of his swinging blade to save a child half my age. He cut my arm clean off and declared me worthless. Please, help me! That's when he and his brother Silas led me to the mountain to give me a death worth dying, per Silas's request. I think he was hoping to fill some sort of void left by his mother's struggle to raise them, by putting me out of my misery, like he wished he could have done for his mother so long ago. Yet, I escaped, against all the odds, only to somehow wind up face to face with one of them again. And, as surprising as this encounter is, I never would have expected him to know anything about my parents, let alone be the one who killed them. "Is that you, lad?" A familiar voice calls out. "Forrest? Is that really him?" The ground rumbles beneath me. "I'm here, young smith." Forrest rolls Krokhov's corpse off of me. "What happened, lad? Are you all right? And Valoria?" He grabs my arm and helps me to my feet. "It's him!" I scream, emotions flooding my vocal cords. "He's one of the men from the mine. The one who did this." I hold out my severed arm. "He recognized me and he tried killing me." Forrest puts one hand on the back of my head and pulls me into his arms. "Okay. It's okay, lad." My tears soak his shirt. "Is Valoria safe?" He said she was next, but I couldn't let that happen." I point to her, still asleep in the sand. She's a heavy sleeper." "Oh, aye, lad." He chuckles softly and pats my back. "You did good, Smith." Forrest lets go of me and looks at Krokhov's body. My dagger is still piercing his ribcage, blood staining the sand beneath him. He said he killed my parents. We stand in silence for a moment before he asks, "Do you think it's true?" I don't know. You said he's one of the men from the mine, right? Yeah. Well, maybe someone else has the answers you're looking for. Forrest is probably right. If anyone is going to know anything about my past, it'll be him. His brother, Silas. Forrest walks over to Valoria and lifts her over his shoulder. "Well, lad, we may not have time to find out right now. There's no telling how people are going to respond to you killing someone." My skin crawls as the words leave his lips. "Probably ought to get you out of here. And quickly." Okay. I follow Vorus as we leave the bloody scene behind us, the moon still lighting our path. As we run, I can't shake the image of my dagger sticking out of Krokhov's lifeless body. I don't have it in me to go back and remove it from his corpse. Hopefully Vorus won't be upset I left it behind after all the work he put into it. We move in silence to the edge of the village that reminds me so much of a home I never knew, and what may hold the last tie to my true family, preparing to leave it behind for good. Just like in Alba, we're racing to the forest to find our way to this village Valoria speaks so fondly of. I hope we're able to get there safely. I wipe the blood from my face with my sleeve while continuing to try and keep up with Vorus. Valoria still hangs from his shoulder, her head bobbing with every step. With one last turn, I can see the edge of the village just up ahead. We dash our way into the dark dunes of the desert. Where are we going? Back to the river, lad. Valoria pointed out the rock we're supposed to turn at on our way here. Suppose we should head there. Forrest gets quiet and picks up his pace. It's hard to keep my balance on this sand, but I manage to stay with him. I turn my head back to look at the village already in the distance from us. I wonder if I'll ever return and figure out the truth to where I came from. Will I be allowed after what happened? On top of that, what do I honestly expect? Silas to just come forward and answer my questions willingly? After all, I murdered his brother, and he thinks he killed me on the mountain. Come on, young Smith. Forrest snaps me out of my daze. We stumble around silently in the dark together. Valoria still fast asleep. As we pass over the top of a large sand dune, I can see where the river bends. It curves around the valley and flows onward, slashing its way through the sand. It appears to be slower here than it was when we first tried jumping over it, almost like we could wade straight across it. Maybe this is close to where I washed up. I never even got to thank the 3 brothers who rescued me and reunited me with my companions. Forrest slides down the dune and stands by the river. I follow him closely. Well? He looks down at me, then steps into the water. You need to wash off anyways. Ho ho! I look down at myself. Dusty, muddy, bloody, and oof, I smell. I guess he's not wrong. Forrest is already halfway to the other side by the time I look back up. I step into the chest-deep water and dunk my head. I rub my hands along my skin and try to wipe off some of the clumps of sand stuck to me. The water clouds up in a murky brown. It's refreshing to rinse off and submerge my mind from any thoughts for a moment. Splash, splash, splash. I lift my head from the stream and wipe my hair out of my eyes, then wade across to meet Vorus. Here, lad. Vorus holds out my leather arm. I thought I'd keep you out of trouble by waiting to give it back. His gaze softens. Wish I was right for once. I take the arm and begin fastening it in place. Remember I told you there was more going on in Alba than you knew? Smack. I pop my arm back on and clench a fist. The morning you got beat up, when I left you home alone, well, a lady selling some sort of crystals in the market was hanged. She claimed they were magic, or... He exhales deeply and pulls at his beard. Look, lad. The reason I'm saying this, I just don't want you thinking that was your fault. This witch hunt already had everybody riled up. And what happened in Alba, it was gonna happen whether you left the shop that day or not. That's why I was with Nita when we found you. Forrest's mouth curls down and his lip quivers. Finding you in the alley should have been our last sign to leave. I just didn't know it then. Come on, young Smith. We can make camp when we reach the rock. Before I can say anything, Forrest starts walking along the river again, the opposite direction we were going the first time. I shake off some of the water from myself and catch up with him. Hearing him say that took a weight off my chest I didn't realize was there. I still felt guilty about Nita and Valoria's mother. What happened was still horrible, but it really wasn't my fault after all. Step by step, under the stars, we march along the riverside. As we walk in silence, the ground begins progressively changing beneath our feet. I watch as the grains of sand turn into a cracked red stone, with green shrubs and small patches of grass growing out of it. Life is springing up again. We're nearly out of the fuming desert. The moon shifts past its highest point and begins setting. Just over the horizon, I can make out what looks to be a tree line. I wonder how far this rock is into the forest. I remember Valoria said it should have a hole through the middle of it, and we should head east from there. It feels like it's been such a long time since we left Alba. I got us all way off track by falling in the river. Then again, if I never fell in, I never would have found out Silas may know something about my parents. How you holding up, young Smith? I'm pretty tired, Forrest. All right, Todd. Let's get into the trees and we'll rest. Okay. My clothes are just about dry, finally. Doesn't look like the blood came out, though. It's stained to them. How is Valoria going to respond when she wakes up? The last thing she remembers, we were holding hands, watching the sunset. Now we're on the run because I killed someone. The moon disappears behind a leafy canopy. We've made it to the shaded woods. The river begins to sound more fierce as we continue following it, splashing and crashing against the carved-out walls. My stomach curls in knots, remembering being swept away in the current. I look down at my boots, passing through the swaying grass. I can't go much further. I let out a yawn, stretch my arms, and twist my neck. As I look up, I run into Forrest's back. He's still as a stone. You see it, lad? He points his left hand at a towering rock with a gaping hole through the middle of it. That's the one! Ho ho! Forrest starts to jog swiftly through the trees, heading straight for the rock. I muster up my last bit of energy and speed over to the landmark Valoria mentioned. It makes even Forrest appear tiny. The two sides meeting at the top, with the hole through the middle, makes it look like a giant stone eye peering into the night sky. The stars twinkle in its gaze. All right, young Smith. Get some sleep. We'll be going in the morn. Okay. Good night, Forrest. Good night, laddie. I lie down on the grass and close my eyes. I immediately fall asleep. Just go! A woman sobs. Leave me! I can't, a man screams back. My love. There's smoke fogging the air around us. The building we're in is smoldering in fire. The wood crackles and shines bright red. My father holds me in his arms. A woman lays on the floor before us, surrounded by a pool of blood. Her eyes pour out tears as she stares up at us. Please, save him, my love. They grab each other's hands momentarily. The woman looks deep into my eyes. Then my father stands and runs through the cloud of smoke. Crash. I smell smoke. I wake up and frantically look around. My heart is thumping heavily. Forrest and Valoria are sitting next to each other around a small campfire. It looks like they're eating. The sun is still rising. It must be early. I wonder how long they've been up. I take a few deep breaths to calm my nerves, rub my eyes with my fists, one flesh, one leather, then stand up to join them. They both look over at me. Morning, lad. You want fish? I nod my head while continuing to stretch. Ho ho! Course you do. Have a seat, young Smith. I walk over and sit down next to Valoria by the fire. Morning. I give her a half smile. Hey! She bites a small fish off of a stick and keeps talking. Morning! Did you see the... She swallows her food. Sorry. The stone. Did you see it? I look up at the massive rock towering over us, only a few steps away, and point at it. You mean that one? Mm-hmm. Look. Valoria hands over a leather journal open to a page with a drawing of the same rock in it. Above it, written and underlined, it reads, Seer's Stone? Yeah, that's what Mother always called it. She said she would come here to meditate. I've never seen it myself, though, until now. I look down into her worn-out journal. The writing is faded, the pages are brown and torn around the edges, and worst of all, the spine has lost its sturdiness. The paper within loosely holds to the binding. I'm afraid I'll pull a page right out if I'm not careful. There's scribblings and symbols drawn all over the page surrounding this seer's stone. One reads, A bud stems tall, blooming new life. Time withers by, a mere shadow of respite. Blossom into flowers, bathe within the light. Unto petals frail and fester, reeking putrid stife. That's morbid. What is? Valoria asks. Her poem. I point at the one I just read. She squints to read it. I think it's beautiful. Did we read the same thing? I make a face at her. It's about life and death. Most people are too afraid of their own mortality to ponder it, let alone appreciate it as a natural part of their existence. All things that live must die eventually. It's the balance in this world. Light and dark, good and bad. Without one, the other couldn't exist. Mother always... A slip of paper falls out of the pages and lands on my foot. What's that? I pick up the folded page and flip it over. It says Valoria on it. I don't know. Valoria takes the paper from me. Her hands are trembling, and she has a look of disbelief across her face. She stays frozen in place, staring at her name written in large letters. Her eyes are completely glazed over, like her consciousness isn't even here anymore. She's lost in thought. "Here, young Smith, heat up." Forrest holds out a stick with cooked fish on it. "Thanks." I take it and start eating. "You all right, lass?" Forrest gently pats Valoria's back. "Yeah, sorry." She opens the folded paper and falls silent again. I keep eating while we wait for her to say something, keeping my eyes fixed on the small fire. I wonder what that paper says and why she was so shocked to see it. For as long as I've been around her, that journal hasn't left her bag. Who could have put a note in it without her knowing? I take the last bite of fish off the stick. Valoria gasps. I look up at her. Tears are rolling down her cheeks as she continues reading. Her mouth hangs open as her eyes beam left to right. Her grip tightens around the edge of the page, knuckles turning red, crinkling the paper. Then, suddenly, she relaxes her whole body, and a small smile emerges on her face. A single tear falls from her left eye as she closes them and refolds the paper. "Are you..." Forrest sits tall, holds the palm of his hand up at me, and shakes his head. And so we wait, letting her take in whatever it is she just read. All three of us sit quietly around the fire, soaking in the warm sun as it rises close to its peak. The morning dew is all but dried up, and a cool draft ripples our clothes. After a while, Forrest stands up and stamps out the fire, then grabs his things and looks to the sky. "Best we travel during the day," he hollers. Right. Valoria and I stand up. She's still speechless. "East we go! Ho ho!" And just like that, we begin our journey again, back on course.